Hello and welcome or welcome back to CSEC English B Solutions with your favorite virtual tutor, Miss Athalie. Today we will answer items 21 to 30 from the May-June 2019 paper 1. This poem is called Elephant, and it has actually given many teachers a headache. So if you have read this poem before and you've been confused, trust me, you're not the only one. Before making this video, I cross-referenced my answers with 3 or 4 different literature teachers, and we have come to an agreement. After each question that is not very straightforward, I will provide a justification for my answer so that you can understand. But we can still debate it in the comments. Again, here is a helpful tip. Before you begin to respond to any of the questions, read the poem at least 3 times, read it twice, then read the questions, read the poem again. This is from wise English B teachers everywhere. Here is our poem. I'll read it once, then we will go through a few things, and I would like you to read it twice before we begin to look at the responses. So before we start answering the questions, you should have read it 3 times, once with me and twice by yourself. Okay, so let's go. Elephant. Memory claims that in a jungle once, a great mother elephant, crazed with grief for her lost son, wrapped her trunk around a baobab tree and wrenched it free from its upside-down hold in the earth and trumpeted down the hole in the earth for her vanished one. Elephant. The lost, the cursed one lumbers up from under the big trees in Queen Victoria's Park. This man, more pachyderm than man, skin draped loose, grey muddy tarpaulin over elephantiasis limbs. He moves bent over, weighed by the bag of crosses over his shoulder. His lips droop tubular. Small children appear and chant, "Elephant, elephant." He rears back on his huge hind legs, trumpeting threats of illegal surgery by broken glass bottle. Death to small children, who scatter before him like antelopes and elands skittering across the asphalt heading home. Elephant, loneliest one in all creation. Your friends, the night-grazing mules, tethered by dark hills of coal in Mulling's grass yard. Poor elephant, always walking, hoping one day he would turn a corner and come upon a clearing familiar to long memory. Wide green space and baobab trees, for there his mother and the great herd would be free. Let us check our footnotes. So we see the number 1 here. So we find out what baobab is. Here it's an old tree with thick trunks. And number 2, where is it? Here. That is a very large, thick-skinned mammal, pachyderm. And credit to Lorna Goodison for this jewel of a poem. So before we move on and before you read it again, if we had to divide this poem, yes, there are 4 stanzas, but we can divide it into 2. This first part is about an elephant or mother elephant. And this part is about a man who is referred to as elephant because of his legs. Once you make that distinction, it's much easier to understand the poem. So this particular man is suffering with something called elephantiasis. It's also called lymphatic filariasis, and it's a painful and profoundly disfiguring disease. It is caused by infection with parasites, and I've left the screenshot here, so if you would like to research it a little more, you can do that. We don't want to like get into the scientific whatever of it, just so you can have an idea of what people who have this condition look like. It's a little bit graphic, right? I hope I don't get in trouble for using these pictures, but um it's a sad situation. So this homeless man in our poem has this condition, and this is why they refer to him as elephant. When you look at it, it sort of looks like the skin of an elephant. Right, so I've traumatized you enough. Please read your poem twice and move on to the questions. First one. The poet uses the first stanza primarily to A. Prepare the reader for the elephant's escape from the jungle. B. Underscore the parent-child relationship that exists in the jungle. C. Introduce the idea of mother loss through the use of narrative. D. Suggest metaphorically that the elephant is wild and uncontrollable. I will give you a few seconds to answer for yourself. If you would like, you can write your answer on a piece of paper or a notebook, and you can check the correct ones with me as we go along. So, answer C. Introduce the idea of mother loss through the use of narrative. Next, lines 10 to 11. This man, more pachyderm than man, skin draped loose, grey, muddy as tarpaulin, over swollen elephantiasis limbs, are effective because of the A. Simile which shows the extent of the man's loneliness and isolation. B. Visual imagery which reinforces that physically man and elephant are alike. C. Use of all the senses which evokes sympathy in the reader for the state of the man. D. Image of a muddy man with swollen limbs which encourages the reader to be afraid. Answer here, visual imagery. And we can't say that it's C, use of all the senses, because we don't have any taste here. I don't think we have sound either. So the best answer is B. D, I don't think she's trying to scare us with that description. I was not afraid, but maybe I'm just really strong. Next. What impression is created by he rears back on his huge hind legs trumpeting? Line 15. A. A diseased elephant whose legs are swollen. B. The image of an elephant that roams the city. C. The image of elephant, the man, who transforms into an elephant by his size and his voice. D. The sound of an elephant whose voice shatters the ears of the smaller creatures that scamper away. Answer C. The image of elephant, the man who transforms into an elephant by his size and his voice. Line 17 to 18. Scatter before him like antelopes and elands are effective because they A. Reinforce the motif of domination and control in the wild. B. Deepen the extended metaphor about the fate of wild animals. C. Appeal to the thematic presentation of fatherhood and transplantation. D. Solidify the animal imagery of both the jungle and the urban setting. And our answer is D. Solidify the animal imagery of both the jungle and the urban setting. Which of the following is not a figurative device? A. And wrenched it free, line 5. B. Weighed by the bag of crosses, line 12. C. He rears back on his huge hind legs, line 15. D. skittering across the asphalt. Line 18. Our answer here, oh wait, let me give you some time first. A, and wrenched it free. Weighed by the bag of crosses, that is sort of metaphorical. He rears back on his huge hind legs. We have an alliteration here. And also skittering across the asphalt. You can hear the repetition of the S sound. Next. Which of the following best describes the speaker's attitude to elephant? A, nonchalant and aloof. B, conciliatory and hopeful. C, reproachful and reflective. D, sympathetic and sorrowful. Our answer is D, sympathetic and sorrowful. The best example of the poet's use of contrast in this poem is the A, shift from the baobab tree in the jungle to big trees in a park in the city. B, size of the elephant in the jungle and the swollen limbs of elephant, the loner. C, differentiation between the homeless man and the elephant with elephantiasis legs. D, suggestion of the difference between the elephant in the jungle and the man the children tease. The best answer is A. Why? Some people may say that it should be the comparison between the elephant and the man. However, you must keep in mind that contrast focuses on differences. And our poet here is focusing on the similarities between the elephant, the animal, and elephant, the man or the loner. So please keep that in mind. Sometimes these questions can be a little tricky. That's why you need to know what words mean. Remember that contrast focuses on differences. So we see a difference between the baobab tree in the jungle and the trees in the park in the city. Those are two very different settings and different kinds of trees. I think it would be very rare to find a baobab tree in Victoria's Park. Next, which of the following is used as a symbol? A, his lips drooped tubular, line 13. B, threats of illegal surgery by broken glass bottle, line 16. C, tethered by dark hills of coal, line 20. And D, his mother and the great hoods would be free, line 26. The answer is D. And I actually know of people who have given every possible choice as a symbol. People really differ on this one, but I will explain my justification for this. So if we go back to the final stanza of that poem, we notice that that Lorna Goodison is referring to elephants, the man, and not the animal. Why? The word elephant is capitalized, so we know that we're referring to this man. She's respecting him, by starting his name with a capital letter, even though it's a disrespectful nickname. And so this man, he is walking. He is hoping that one day he will turn a corner and come upon a clearing familiar to long memory, hoping for wide green space and baobab trees. But this is not literal, because realistically, this man is never going to stumble upon baobab trees in his particular setting. His mother is not an elephant. He is not really part of a herd. So what are these two lines? They are not meant to be taken literally. And this is a symbol of hope or freedom. But if you still disagree, we can debate about it in the comments. Next, the final stanza functions as an effective ending to the poem because it A. concentrates mainly on the speaker's attitude to elephant. B. gives the promise of a reunion to those who suffer loss. C. suggests that elephant will no longer suffer from memory loss and anxiety. D. reinforces the idea that elephant will always be the lost son who pines for his mother. And if I'm moving too quickly, you can always pause the video if you need a little more time to go back to the poem, read the questions again, read the options, etc. Answer D. reinforces the idea that elephant will always be the lost son who pines for his mother. So someone may ask, why not B? Gives the promise of a reunion. Because we know that A and C are ridiculous, so why not B? We want to look at that last stanza again. So throughout that entire poem, we know that this man is not having the time of his life. He has this disease. He is not happy. The children tease him. What a sad life. But he's walking around hoping one day he would turn a corner and come upon the clearing familiar to long memory. Now, he's hoping, but does that mean he's going to achieve that thing that he wants? Not necessarily. I can hope for an ice cream, and I always mention ice cream in these videos because I love ice cream. I can hope and cry all I want, but does it mean that I will necessarily get that ice cream? No. So in this stanza here, I am not seeing hope. I am actually seeing a lot of desperation, and I find that it actually ends on a sad note. So this is why I have chosen D. There is no actual promise of a reunion. The man hopes, but there is no promise. Just like you're wishing for only grade 1s for your CXC, but there is no promise, unless you put in that work. And you're doing that right now, so very good. Pat yourself on the back. Next, the title Elephant is appropriate because A. as a single word, the title is appealing to readers, especially animal lovers. B. the sound of the word gives the poem a lilting effect and makes it easier to understand. C. the poem speaks about the ordeal of a mother elephant in the jungle who finally rejoins her son. Or D. the mother elephant becomes the symbol of another kind of loss and separation. This one is sort of a giveaway because the first 3 answers are quite ridiculous again. So here we have another hint. Remember this question? It was asking us for a symbol, and I told you that I selected D. And here, it's actually in the option, the mother elephant becomes the symbol of another kind of loss and separation. So sometimes if you are very careful, you can actually find the answers, or you can find hints for other questions in other questions. And I think that's kind of cool, but you have to make sure that your brain is turned on and you're thinking very clearly, you're not distracted at all. Easy, right? Okay, in this case it really wasn't, but I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, if you'd like to discuss anything, feel free to do so in the comments. I'd be happy to help. See you next time.